Sheikh. That's not.
No, they're very abnormal, minor signs.
Yes.
Okay.
But they don't all have to be.
Yeah.
يعني like Arabs building structures ما فيها شيء.
Like the Prophet said, a fire will come in Arabia and Hijaz.
That's abnormal.
Abnormal. And you can see with your own naked eye. Okay? The shadow of a tall building in Syria. That's not normal.
Or the cow speaking.
Or the cow
or the
speaking,
predatory
animals speaking.
With the whip speaking. All things, but they don't have to be, is what we're saying. But the major signs will be.
Okay, good.
All of them. Second, we said minor signs, some have taken place, some are taking place, some haven't. Major signs, not a single one has taken place. Third, the minor signs, we haven't specifically limited them to any number, but the major signs are 10. And I know that some scholars counted the Mahdi as from the major, but they're typically the 10 that are agreed upon. Any objections there?
No, good.
Okay. The minor signs don't necessarily close the doors of Tawbah. Maybe there's one, I can't think of it. But for the major signs, some of them, when they happen, you can't make Tawbah anymore.
Which is the sun coming from the west.
The sun coming from the west. The scholars mentioned, and it's a clever, they said the smoke, because the smoke, when it comes, however you inhale it, it affects you immediately. It affects the kafir negatively and the believer negatively. You can't now, after it affected you already, say, خلاص, let me make tawbah, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah.
غرغرة خلاص. But then the smoke comes after the sun anyway.
Yeah, that's true. And some said, now I don't know if you agree with this, some said the Dajjal also kinds of haram. He hears the Dajjal is out, he said, la, let me straighten up. Allahu Akbar, he starts praying. They said, the Prophet & said, a man who's confident in his iman goes to the Dajjal and he loses his deen. How is this guy just going to make tawbah now and make it?
No.
You don't like that one?
Sheikh, does that mean that as long as the sign is evident, only at that time tawbah is not accepted, or till the day of judgment? It's
no, there is nos.
No.
There is nos. Tawbah will not be accepted.
Period at all.
Period. The Prophet very explicit. Okay. Not be accepted when the sun comes out, and when the Prophet limited to 2, you cannot add to it.
The Sheikh,
from next generation.
What about
the next generation, when the sun comes up, and then next generation?
There's no next generation. When the sun comes up,
khalas, it's over.
Nobody.
All right.
Everybody will die.
No more, huh?
Yeah, no more.
Okay. Sometimes the minor signs can deal with prohibitions, they can deal with social issues, they can just be stating something, it's not necessarily halal or haram, but the major signs, they don't deal with halal or haram or social issues. They're all ashya kawniyya, the kind of things happening to the world. The minor signs can be repeated, but the major ones just happen once. Huh? خلاص ندخل?
Yeah.
All right, great.
Their judgment. Many people, especially in Christianity, later Christianity, and many Muslims affected by that too, they say it's a figurative speech.
Yes.
It's not literally there will be Juj wa Ma'juj or the false Messiah. They said they are figurative. So somebody would say the false Juj wa Ma'juj are the Chinese, or people from Far East. Why? He said because the Prophet said the false Messiah has one eye, and he enter every house and everywhere
and lies.
Also they said the Juj wa Ma'juj, the Prophet said that they have like these long faces, wear like certain type of shoes, which is known to be among the people of Mongolia. Okay, there are people with the sword and figurative speech. There's no horses, it's become cars. Okay, so all this, like, how can we understand it? Do we say this way, that way? We take that literally?
Okay. So, language mostly is literal. When I say turn off the lights, I mean turn off the lights. You don't think that I'm saying stop reading the Quran, which is the light and the guidance. Nobody talks like that. And when it's figurative speech, it's you can figure out. But basically, the Prophet ﷺ is saying, okay, so when the sun rises from the west, and I've heard people say, the sun doesn't really rise from the west. They said Islam will come out of the west. People will take shahadas left and right, and that's the Islam rising from the sun rising from the west. So I asked him, I said, then why can't you make tawbah then? يعني if-
What's the point from Islam?
Let 10,000 people take Shahada today. Why can't I make Tawbah at home? It doesn't make any sense. And that's why I said one of the guidelines are important. And one of the guidelines is in order to confirm that this is that sign in the hadith, it has to match all the descriptions. So yeah, this speaker said that Dajjal is the television screen because it's one eye, one screen. It is in every home and it lies. Okay, but you just stopped at the ones that were convenient for your little fatwa. Continue and you'll see that it doesn't match because the hadith says it cannot enter Mecca and Medina. And all of you been to Mecca and Medina for Umrah. There was a TV in your hotel room. Okay, it cuts a man in half. All these things, no television does that. It says Ka Fa Ra on his forehead, not Sony. So it doesn't match that fatwa. It has to match all the descriptions. Sun rising from the west has to match all the descriptions.
For example, the Prophet said, one of the things, the sign of the Day of Judgment, and there's a lot of talk these days about it, underneath that river, a treasure. And that treasure, people will fight over it. From every 1,000 person, one will survive and 999 will die. From every 1,000, only one person survived. Everybody said, that was going to be me. So they say, that's the oil. Gold, it means the black gold. What do you think, Sheikh Salman? You know, these days, the river, Euphrates River, is actually almost dried out in certain areas, and they just found an old Asian cities and stuff like that. It's so scary, actually, when you see the river. That river, I remember when I was a kid seeing the pictures of the Furat. It just an unbelievable, big, huge river. And to see it dry like that, and you heard about this guy in actually an ancient rock written in it. If you read that, that means you're doomed. You know, that means that like plague or something like it coming to you.
So Sheikhna, in the 90s, if you may recall, this happened a lot, reading of science, especially because of the spread of the Gulf War in particular. America became the #1 target of apocalyptics, and the idea of American dollar being Dajjal was very prominent because you see the American dollar, $1 bill has that eye in the middle. They used to say this eye of Dajjal. They used to use the American quarter because you have the side profile of Abraham Lincoln over there, only one eye can be seen. They used to say that's the Dajjal over there. So here's an interesting concept. What is cryptocurrency for them then? Isa ibn Maryam? Because it's killing the physical currency. So, and not just cryptocurrency, electronic means of communication, transactions have become so prominent. We have lost the.
I said that's.
Wallahu alam, Shaykh.
But so
The Prophet said, don't touch it. That, first of all, do we see in Iraq 1,000, one person die? And
that's what I was going to say.
that's
Where's
not right.
where
Number
the
two,
death?
the Prophet said, don't touch it. Is that means Iraqi people not allowed to use oil? 3, an important thing about metaphor. You cannot use metaphor based in modern language. Yani the Prophet ﷺ in his time, there is no such thing called black gold referring to oil.
Yeah.
That's not the Arab talk. That's not an Arabic language. That's a modern terminology came these days. It's like you say the Prophet ﷺ said, as-sa'a. Oh, the Prophet ﷺ talked about watch. Maybe some of these signs can be a figurative speech. In a sense, can be a metaphor. Like for example, the Prophet ﷺ said, or not a figurative speech, it can be general enough to be understood in a modern language context. Like for example, the Prophet ﷺ said, the market will be too close. You can see it as an actual market close to one another.
Right.
Also, you can say that's that you can reach to it with one just touch. Also, one of the interpretations they said, close, it means close in prices. There is so much competition.
Yeah.
And all of these things refer to one major concept, which is so many hadith tells about, the attached to the dunya, the love for wealth, the love for money. So definitely, for example, you're gonna ride couches or chairs.
Or chariots or chairs, yeah.
You ride a chair that will carry you to the masjid. how you interpret this. If somebody said this referred to something like cars, no problem.
Makes sense.
The problem comes when you say they had the all before
Yeah,
cars.
yeah.
What about maybe tomorrow we're gonna have spaceship take us to the nest, an airplane carry us,
Or
an
wheelchairs.
actual chair or
Wheelchairs.
wheelchair, but not all of us. There's only people who
Yeah.
need that. But maybe we'll have a chair that fly tomorrow.
Tesla is working on.
You see what I'm saying? So the problem comes when you limit the Prophet ﷺ hadith to certain things that you see with your problem with that.
We'll stop for the adhan real quick. تفضل.
الله أكبر الله أكبر
Make sense?
Yes, no.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله
I had my notes here somewhere, and I think I've lost them.
أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة
لا حول ولا قوة.
حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله لا إله إلا الله
Yeah, so the examples Sheikh Walid gave, they all make sense. And that's one of the things, there can be more than one plausible explanation. So to go back when you were mentioning that, the hadith mention horses, or they mention spears, or they mention arrows, immediately people say, oh, there's going to be some kind of catastrophe and humanity would start all over again. Oh, there's going to be a news and stuff. Why would there be no guns? So they said, what if do you expect the Prophet ﷺ to tell them they will conquer Constantinople without firing a single RPG? قالوا وما الRPG يا رسول الله. And what do you expect him to say to them? So they said, yeah, he could be talking to them in their language. Makes sense. Or they could be guns and horses at the same time. So there could be more than one plot. But like Sheikh Walid said, it's so true. When someone insists on knowing exactly what is in the unseen, that's a problem. That's when you should stop listening to them.
Yeah, speaking of Al-Qustantiniya, a lot of people, for example, said that the Muhammad al-Fatih is the one who conquered Constantine, which is Istanbul today, and that's one of the signs of the Day of Judgment. But if you look at the hadith, the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said فإذا فتحوا القسطنطينية بالتكبير والتكبير without shooting anything يعلقون أغصانا clear evidence referring that that's what meant by the hadith.
We're almost at the end, and some people are probably just, they want to know what are the 10 signs. Is that the case or not? I don't know if I'm going to go in any order, but at least, comes first, indicating that even he didn't know the order, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But the Mahdi is not one of the 10 signs, the major. Mahdi emerges.
What's al-Mahdi?
The Mahdi is a normal human being by the name of Muhammad ibn Abdullah, whom the Ummah will fight the army of the Dajjal. People thought the Dajjal showed up just now. and all the signs have to match. Sheikh, have you ever met a Mahdi?
I met his brother, led the Juhayman incident.
You really met?
I met his brother.
Subhanallah.
His brother just a good guy.
عادي كده. Have you ever met a Mahdi, Sheikh Salman?
No, Sheikh, but I've seen plenty of videos online. They're a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, I've seen a lot. I met a Mahdi. I mentioned the Mahdi in a khutbah one time in Florida. No. But what's interesting, Sheikh?
Yeah, I saw one guy also in Detroit came to me and he said, I'm a Mahdi, but now, alhamdulillah, I became a prophet.
Oh,
so
you got a promotion.
Inshallah, in another incident, I'll tell you, we had a very funny incident. So one of the brother became like that.
It's like Sabir is ready to take the abuse, mashallah. Okay.
Later, I'll tell you his story later.
All right, طيب, let's see. So we've got during the time of the Mahdi, the Dajjal emerges. Then when the Dajjal emerges, Isa ibn Maryam comes and that he kills the Dajjal. Then right as the hadith says, while they're upon that state, someone yells out that Ya'juj and Ma'juj have come out. So
it means a false
Messiah.
False Messiah. He claimed that he's the Messiah. Then later on he claimed that he's God.
And he's a human being. And the Prophet described him and told us who even looks like him, and he's not a system or a new world order or anything. Then we have a landslide that will happen, a major landslide in the east. Then a beast that will speak to people and label people in some hadith. The sun rising from, did I miss anything? The sun rising from there. Which one is it?
West.
West, yeah. And then the fire, the great fire. I wasn't counting. Did we get all of them?
Earthquakes, yeah?
Huh?
We covered the earthquakes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
But they're
I mean,
they're
the
separate
landslides or the earthquakes.
Okay.
The landslides. It looks like the beast comes after the sunrise.
Yeah?
Because it mark people, a believer or non-believer, but it looks like, because khalas, if it's mark him, that's the person. People will be known as Muslim and Kafir and Munafiq.
Right.
Or Muslim and Kafir, sorry. So anyway, so after that, a fire comes, or a dukhan, then the fire.
With the smoke, I think I missed the
smoke,
huh?
yeah.
The smoke and then the fire. Yes.
Yeah. The smoke, we're going to go over them, but quickly. Let's start with, the ulama divided these signs to two groups. Signs that appear in the sky, in the universe, and sign into the landslide, and the smoke, and the fire. Okay? This comes from basically our universe, natural phenomenon. I don't know if it's called phenomena because it's never been happened before.
It's Sahih, but
so
it's a weird phenomenon, Sheikh.
It's a weird phenomenon, okay. And the one that happened on earth, which is the rest. So let's pick some so people get to know what is this.
Sheikh Salman, start us off with the Dajjal.
Go ahead.
Well, yeah.
Dajjal is a good topic.
So Sheikh, just as a, and for everybody, inshallah, disclaimer, it's a rather daunting position to be, and humbling as well, to be sitting between my teacher. I thought about this a lot. Sheikh Ammar called me and said, let's do this. This was Monday. And I was thinking, fidgeting all this time, what can I possibly say that will add to the meat of the matter? And I thought, I'll do something else. I won't touch the meat. I'll just skin the fat from both sides. Not just skin the fat, I'll cook it. So I'm going to talk about matters, inshallah, that usually are not discussed under the topic of Ad-Dajjal when the Dajjal topic is taught. And the reason is for that because you'll see they're not very flavorful, unlike fat, which is very flavorful.
Okay.
For example, one thing Shaykh Wali teaches us when he teaches Taj Behr's class for Al-Makram Institute, which is the licensed scholars, is we start in particular order of things. Name and lineage, parenthood, where were the early years, which city was he born in, where did he grow up, whom did he learn from, who, and so forth. This formula can be followed for Ad-Dajjal as well, because unlike the fact that he is not a scholar, we still need to learn about him, because learning about your enemy is of worth and value. So what is Al-Dajjal? 6th of January 183 AD? We know from the hadith of Tamim al-Dari that he's been alive since the time of Tamim al-Dari radhiyallahu anhu, and that's at least 14 centuries have passed. He was very likely alive before Tamim al-Dari and his companions visited him. If you don't know the hadith, perhaps Shaykh Walid will describe this at length, inshallah. But the idea behind easiest khutbah to find, go on google.com, type Dajjal Kamal al-Makki. You'll find khutbah.
Just don't Google Kamal al-Makki the Dajjal. Hello.
The sound isn't okay. It's my voice as well.
Yeah, just a little louder.
It's the voice.
I'll hold it like this, inshallah. So, frankly speaking, I did not do a lot of research in this.
This way. Will make a problem.
Okay. Better now?
Just
Okay.
yell.
I did not do a lot of research for this, because one of the things that is mentioned in our deen frequently is knowledge which has no value is not relayed to us. Having the name of Ad-Dajjal brings us no benefits. For that matter, who were his parents? What's his lineage? Is he min al-jinn or min al-ins? This is something the scholars talked about a lot, believe it or not. And yes, he's from Bani Adam. He's from human beings, because of the character traits that have been given. In fact, frequently, as mentioned in the Sunnah of Prophet ﷺ, there were people who were suspected of being Ad-Dajjal during the time of the Prophet ﷺ himself. Famously, a young kid, his name was Dajjal, very likely, not very likely, for sure is from Bani Adam. So he has a name. What is his name? We don't care. Because of the simple fact that the title Ad-Dajjal is sufficient for us. Now just to be clear, any word which is, any ism which is on the sigha of fa'al, immediately my ears light up for that. I'm attracted to the words that are on that sigha, fa'al. For example, the names of Allah.
Ma'alish, I'm going to cut you off, but I'm going to speed you up.
Jazakallah khair. So Ad-Dajjal is someone who deceives. Comes from the word Dajjala, which means to mix. Scholar says someone who mixes truth with falsehood. So Dajjal basically is the khitab given to him. As the Shaykh mentioned, there are other, from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that will come before him. Kadhabun Dajjalun. But
So
he's
Dajjal means someone who deceive, who... You know,
Someone
what do you
who
call
deceives,
these magicians?
misguides,
You know
and-
these... No, in English. No, there is a name, you know, these... Even they have these movies about, you know, these guys who like make tricks and disappear things and make them appear. Huh?
Illusionist.
Illusionist. Okay.
So what can you give me example of things that you will do that's so deceiving?
I wanted to get to that point. So
Yeah, I want to push you to that point. Go ahead.
Sheikh, now one thing we can do today, as anyone sitting here, we can imagine very easily the idea of a barren piece of land, and suddenly it erupts with life. Insects, green plants, flowers happening in TV night and day. I want you all to understand this. What we perceive is how we are programmed. We should be careful what we consume. It will be difficult for people who consume things like this all the time to tell the difference between Dajjal and those that are truthful. That's why people who will watch a lot about superheroes or supervillains, zombies, aliens, vampires and all that, they will be the first group of people who will enter his army. Why? Because they've been consuming and absorbing this information for the longest time. For them, ajib things are not ajib anymore. They are normal. So if you want to preserve yourself, you want to learn about Dajjal and to protect yourself and your progeny, do not expose them to about the idea of...
I'm sorry, I didn't get it.
Okay, but let's talk about...
So how
Welcome
watching...
to Friday Night Lights.
How watching movies and stuff like that, superheroes, is going to be not help me to protect from the
Things, Sheikh, that are unnatural are things that are becoming more and more commonplace. Yani, the idea of a person flying through the air has become so commonplace since the 1978 movie Superman that today it does not become or sound strange to us that a person can traverse the land and the sea in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, but how this will make me more receptive to follow the Dajjal?
If a person is programmed to assume things that are not normal to live normal, when Dajjal comes, as everyone knows, he will bring with him things that are very strange, which sound very strange to
So
us today.
I will say to Dajjal, so what? You know, when Superman does better than you.
Don't they follow him?
That
Okay.
this
Okay, any kind of, you see my point? I mean, I think seeing these supernatural things make us see at Dajjal that something possibly can happen.
Perhaps, Sheikh. I tend to think
But
there's a
anyway,
problem with that.
good point.
Another point, for example, would be who will be his followers? Where will the majority of his followers come from? And I know
Nice.
one section of the masjid will have a big problem with this. Let's talk about this. Emergence of Dajjal from the hadith of Abu Bakr Siddiq, which is found in Tirmidhi.
They're already giving you looks of attitude.
We'll get to that point, inshallah. Dajjal will emerge from Al-Isbahan, and amongst his followers will be 7,000 Jews. The question arises, is that his lineage or his tribe? Jews. Not every Judaic person will follow him. That's not what I'm saying, but majority followers will be from them. Another group of people who follow him a lot will be as-sahar, magicians, because majority of his followers will be women. Let's analyze this, both of them. The first reason, obviously, we know from other ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ at the time, and Sheikh Kamal mentioned it in his khutbah, that malahim will happen, a lot of wars will happen, major civil wars as well as wars from outside. And we know from a different hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, one of the minor signs of the Day of Judgment is a lot of killing, excessive killing and warfare, which means a lot of men would have died. This is further, and the majority of people on earth are women. Yes, if the majority of people follow Dajjal, is what the scholars have mentioned, that they perhaps might be easily deceived by his signs as opposed to the men. Not because of their jahl, but because of the things that he will do that will be more appealing to them as opposed to the men. And it could be very likely both of them together.
And he comes and he brings clouds of water, filled with water, rivers, water gushing. Follow me, you can get it. Also, he raised the dead, your husband, your children who die in war, your father. So emotion. There's so much emotion. He plays with people emotion. Ya akhi, subhanallah, one amazing hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that حتى أن الرجل, he comes to his family, he will chain them, put a chain, handcuffs on them, and tie to them to the pillars of the house or things in the house, his wife, his children, his servants, so they will not flee. So definitely that's unique. There's a lot of people other than a lot of women at that time who will be following. Also Ahl al-Bid'ah, the Prophet ﷺ said, the people of innovations will follow him. Very good. So that means the follower of Dajjal will be among Jews, among Muslims, among Christians.
Exactly.
That's important because a lot of people attack us, said, oh, the hadith of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that the tree, it would say when the fight happened between the false Messiah and Jesus, the Jews will be behind the tree, and a Jew will be behind the tree. Will said, come, there is a Jew. Any one of the follower of the false Messiah, if he's a Jew, or originally a Muslim, or originally a Christian,
Right.
he will be told, hey, there is a kafir behind me. Because at that point, there will be no Jew, Christians, or Muslim the way you see it right now. It will be either follower of Iman or Kufr. Following of Isa alayhi salam, or which is follow Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or following Ash-Shaytan and Dajjal. Very good. I think we're going to pray, but that's a good opening to the discussion. Is it true that he's the first one in history to claim that he's Allah?
Fir'aun said, أَنَا رَبُّكُمُ الْأَعْلَى.
No, never.
How would you understand that ayah, Shaykh, then?
Fir'aun never claimed that he is Allah. Fir'aun, Egypt. Fir'aun never claimed, he said, I deserve, I'm God. And I'm the highest of your gods that you guys pray to these days. But he never claimed that he's the one who created the universe. Dajjal will claim that I am the one that you read about, who sent Muhammad and sent Isa and all these things. You're waiting for Allah to come on the Day of Judgment. Here I am. That's why he made a claim no one ever in history did.
Rububiyyah.
Rububiyyah. Laysa ilahiyya. That is the Rabb. Okay? And he will claim that title. That's why he's so humiliated. Sheikh Kamal, if he has all this miracle, how people can realize it is not Allah?
The Prophet ﷺ gave the advice. He said, if you ever get confused, remember one thing.
Talk, please.
Best. Tell him, طب يا أخي, fix that thing, it's disgusting me, first of all.
Sheikh, explain a'war for us better than one ayah, please.
Huh?
Explain the word a'war.
Yes, yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, so again, he's a normal human being. People understand that he has one. It never says that, ever. He's a human being, and if a human being has one eye, if I tell you, there's a brother with one eye outside waiting for me, will you imagine a cyclops or one bad eye, one good eye? One bad eye, one good eye.
And the hadith explain how the other eye looked like.
Sahih. And one time it describes it as like a burst grape protruding like this. And then there's a hadith also
And
describes it
hanging
dangling.
on his cheek.
Dangling. I love that one because I imagine that it's dangling like this, and every time he turns around, like you hear a sound, it's like ding, ding, ding.
So there is written on him here, Kafir. You read it. You speak Arabic, you don't speak Arabic, you don't need a class of Arabic. Even if you don't know how to read letter, you will recognize that that means disbeliever.
So people always imagine who looks the most like him is Ibn Qatan. So that's a normal man, but his eyes are bad. Bas, yani, and he describes why the description of the hair of Isa describes his hair. And so some scholars said so that we don't make we don't confuse between, Prophet ﷺ always mentions as if it's wet. Like when he looks down, it falls like this very limp long hair, whereas on the other side is very thick curly hair. Yes. And
Sheikh, I always thought it would be Desi.
Huh?
I always thought Dajjal would be Desi
No,
because
no.
it's frequently mentioned that he very likely is right now chained up in the island of Sri Lanka.
What?
You heard about that one, Sheikh?
No,
That's
never.
I think